So I went out and I rented a rototiller, which I thought was a thing about like so. Turned out to be 7 feet long. Big motor.
For 30 years, a strange cabin in the woods remained unoccupied. Landon built it as a refuge for himself, but after he died, no one went inside. People in the area talked about it for decades, vines covered. The windows and the door was locked up tight, and when someone finally found the key, they saw what was inside. Shocked everyone with his personal items, secret letters, and something that showed his darkest secret, the cabin he had secrets he didn't want anyone to know. Michael Landon was born on October. Eugene Maurice Orowitz was born on December 31, 1936, in Forest Hills, Queens. He had a Jewish-American father and an Irish Catholic mother. Their marriage was tense because of their different religions. A lot of fights. At home. Eugene's sister Evelyn was born 3 years before he was in. The family moved to Collingswood, New Jersey, in 1941. Eugene was only 4 years old yet. His childhood in a small town would be hard, even though he was smart. Eugene never thought he was smart, but school was hard for him because bullies picked on him. Didn't get him, and the town's strong anti-Semitism didn't help. He had to stay home on Wednesdays while Christian kids went to church. He remembered being left alone. He cleaned blackboards and thought about why he had to be different. The rejection he felt stuck with him, but what hurt the most was more about what went on at home. His mother had serious mental health problems. Eugene attempted suicide multiple times and witnessed traumatic events that no child should have to experience. She walked into the water to kill herself while on a family beach trip. A boy ran in and screamed that she wouldn't stop when her waves hit him in the chest. So he hit her in the face to get her to turn around. She pretended it never happened, but Eugene threw up afterward. Was sick with fear, saw a lot of scenes like this. He called it suicide. He didn't feel safe for days, and the pain didn't end there. Eugene wet the bed, but it wasn't his fault, it was medical. His mother didn't believe that, though. She thought he did it on purpose. Because he was being lazy, she punished him badly by hanging his wet sheets up. Every morning, the school bus stopped right in front of his window. His friends knew he was there. Eugene tried to stop being teased over and over. He'd wake up before dawn and grab the sheets, wash them at the laundromat, and sneak back home even though it was locked. He tried to break in because he couldn't stand the shame. She sent him through him a sleepover to see how bad it would be if he wet the bed there. If he didn't, she told him he had been lying the whole time and that he couldn't win. Years later, he did. Made a movie called The Loneliest Runner about this nightmare. Truth, but in the middle of all this pain, sports gave him hope and peace. He threw the javelin well in high school because he was strong, quick, and focused. 193 feet 4 inches was the longest javelin throw. He threw 211 feet 7 inches in 1954, which was the best high school throw in the country. The next year, he got a new record. National record. All of a sudden, people noticed him. It was the same boy who used to be made fun of. Was now in the news, and a coach called him a solidly built kid with broad that shoulder. Felt like magic to Eugene. For once he was seen. He got a scholarship to the University of Southern California and wanted to go to the Olympics, but he had a strange feeling about it. Like Samson in the Bible, he thought his power came from his long hair. His teammates didn't think that was funny, so they gave him a crew cut. His throws missed by 50 feet, and he became scared. He tried too hard he tore ligaments in his shoulder and could no longer play sports. Eugene was no longer in college, and all of his hopes and dreams fell apart in an instant. Again, he did odd jobs to make money. He sold blankets, stocked shelves, and one day, he was unloading freight when a coworker asked him to help them practice lines for an acting test. Eugene read the part and was better than the friend. A talent agent saw something in him, but his name sounded too Jewish. That could hurt his chances of getting into Hollywood, so he did something brave. He picked up the phone book and looked through it, but Michael Lane was gone when he saw Landon. It stuck Eugene. His new name was Michael Landon, and it had only been 4 months since he changed it. Booked a part on Telephone Time, which was the start of his career, but it wasn't until he became famous that he really in 1957 with a weird little horror movie called I Was a Teenage Michael played a troubled teen who turned into a monster in werewolf. Shocked people because there wasn't a scary movie with a teenage werewolf before. The movie made almost $2 million even though it cost less than $123,000 to make. Became a huge hit, and his intense performance caught the attention of Hollywood. There was the story of Tom Doley, which Michael played as a Confederate soldier in 1959. Attacked a stagecoach by accident because they didn't know the war was over. It was a dramatic and romantic story based on a true story and an old folk song. And sad, he did a great job with this part just months before his big break. He showed he could lead a Western that year, and then everything changed. He got a call about a new TV show. It was first called The Restless Gun, but now it's called When the show changed to Bonanza. Michael was cast as Little Joe Cartwright, the youngest of 3 brothers. It wasn't just another Western when it first aired on September 12, 1959. Changed TV forever. It was the first Western ever to be shot in full color, but most people still watched black and white TVs, but NBC was ahead of the curve and thought the beautiful landscapes would sell well. People would want to move up around Lake Tahoe and the Ponderosa Ranch. Soon, color TVs were the norm, and Bonanza was the most popular show. Every episode cost around $100,000 to $150,000. About $900,000, which is almost $1 million today, was spent on making the show. Bonanza had a rich, movie-like look that changed the way TV looked, but it wasn't just that. It wasn't about pretty scenery, it was about people, and one person stood out. Little Joe, played by Michael Landon, won the hearts of people all over the world by 1966. Around the world, 64 of the 70 places where Bonanza aired sent Landon fan mail. He got over 5,000 letters a week, which was a lot more than any of his co-stars. And the letters were written in every language you can think of. Fans thought Little Joe got them, Landon joked, and he could now say, I don't speak. He already knew how to say it in German and Swedish, now he just had to learn it in Japanese. Before, Landon dreamed of becoming famous as a javelin thrower, but he never thought he'd get there. Strangers to recognize him as an actor, let alone in dozens of languages, quickly became very popular. In its first year, it wasn't even in the top 30, but by the second season, it had broken through. It got into the top 20 in the 3rd season and was number 2 by the 6th season. In 1964 and 1965, it was number 1. 36.3 rating and more than 19 million viewers each week during one stretch. In early in 1964, almost 60% of Americans who watched TV were glued to Bonanza. Came close 3 years in a row, but Bonanza ruled the airwaves. To fight back, networks like CBS put on the Judy Garland show My Living Doll, and the Joey Bishop show didn't work. The Cartwrights couldn't be. It stopped at number 10 for 11 years and stayed in the top 20 for 12 years. It was clear that the cast had a strong bond during most of the scenes. Michael Landon and Dan played Ben Cartwright had become a real father figure to them. He was often asked for advice on and off screen by Blocker, who played his sons. Green even helped negotiate deals for himself, Landon, and Blocker. There were some problems with the movie, but all 3 of the directors, William Landon was called a spoiled brat by Claxton in the early days, and Purnell. It was always a fight between Roberts, who played Adam Cartwright, and the producers. Didn't like the writing and quit after season 6, but Landon and Blocker did. They were so close that they bought a beach house together with Green as Landon's. As his fan base grew, so did his influence. By 1962, he was only 25 years old, but he had already got the network to let him write a script. He thought it would be simple, but it took a long time to write the first one. He was so tired after 2 long days that he didn't write another one for almost 3 years, but once through that block, he found a new love, writing, which he called the hardest job in TV. Directors and actors could sometimes skimp, but not by 1968. Landon had added another title to his name, director. At age 31, he was only 31, he was now writing, directing, and acting. He was the show's creative heart. He was loyal to the people he worked with, the same group he had faith in on Bonanza. Landon didn't just work behind the camera, he went with him to Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. Taking a whole-person approach helped him build his own storytelling empire. One of the most important people in TV, but in 1972 everything changed when Dan Blocker, who played Hose, died at the surgery on his gallbladder. He was only 43 years old. His death was very sad for Landon and Green. Were especially upset because they had worked together for 13 years. As if they were a real family, Green said it felt like a real death in when NBC chose to keep Bonanza going without Blocker. Green, the family was later, he said that he thought they should have cancelled the show right then because she wasn't there. The first episode of the new season aired in September of that year. It was called Forever, and it was supposed to be after Blocker died. Hose Landon had to quickly rewrite a wedding episode. It broke my heart when little Joe lost his wife in the new story. Brother-in-law to a horrible crime, and he sets out to get justice for the several quiet tributes to her were shown in this episode. In one scene, Joe and Ben cry together, which is a rare show of emotion for the characters, who are usually very tough. On Joe's dresser, there was also a framed picture of Hose with a slow zoom. It was one of the most memorable shows in TV history and came in at number 4 in the weekly ratings. Also had to say goodbye, but that strong episode wasn't enough to save the show. Moving Bonanza from Sunday nights to Tuesday nights was a terrible mistake made by CBS. People stopped watching after a while, and the ratings dropped quickly from number 4 to number 39 and then down to number 52 on November 6, 1972. NBC named the Green was angry that he found out about the show's cancellation on a Monday. To leave by Wednesday. "You don't do that to anyone," he said, "not even a street sweeper gets a week's notice," and NBC tried to change their minds just days later. They tried to save the sets, but they were already torn down. The last episode aired on January 16, 1973. Bonanza ended after 14 years and 431 episodes, but there wasn't a real goodbye. That last episode wasn't even the end of a show that used to rule TV. The end of Bonanza and Michael Landon wasn't sudden or cold, but their legacy lived on. Landon went on to make and star in 2 more hit shows after Bonanza. Would never be forgotten, not just for its color, ratings, or characters because it helped make TV what it is today. In 1974 American TV was full of chase scenes from cop shows and loud sitcoms, but Michael Landon after 14 years on Bonanza, he wanted something quieter and more in-depth. No, he didn't rest. Instead, he took a big step into unknown territory. Not sure if I wanted to watch a show about a pioneer family in the 1800s. Ratings gold, but Landon had sway because he had just signed a deal with a NBC, and he used that power to get Little House on the Prairie made. His was the last push it needed. His pitch to ABC was based on the fact that his daughter was reading the books and his wife loved them. Finally agreed to a 2-hour pilot, which aired in March 1974. By September 11, the show had a weekly time slot, and Landon wasn't just the star. He was in charge of everything and produced all 204 episodes from 1974 to 1983. He was in charge of many more, and he moved quickly and rarely did second takes. When something worked, he just said, "Print," and the show went on. Even after the show was over, he kept the story going with his style, tone, and vision. Landon wasn't just a leading man by that point, he had also been in 3 more TV movies. Was one of the most powerful people in TV, but he didn't do it by himself. Landon stuck by his team even when he left Bonanza. He took his staff with him. Producer Kent McRae was in charge of the show. William Claxton, the composer, and David Rose followed him to Little House, and then Rose wrote the music for all 204 episodes of Highway to Heaven. Landon also made sure that his friend Victor French could have a spot as Mr. Edwards and then as him and his co-star on Highway to Heaven. He even bought Christmas with the money he got from NBC for calling the Rose Parade every year. Giving gifts to everyone on the Little House crew was a small thing that said a lot. Behind the scenes, though, not everything was so kind. Karen Grassel in 1975, the actress who played Ma Les, was in a tough fight for fair pay. Even though the show was a top 10 hit, Landon wouldn't let her raise. He told her the network didn't like her character. He even said she should get paid the same as the child actor's Grail was. Landon began cutting her screen time in many episodes after she felt even more embarrassed and worse. Showed up for less than 8 minutes, which cut her residual payments. Once got only $127 per rerun for more than 2 seasons, she thought cornered her. Her contract kept her locked in, and leaving would have been the end of her career. Wasn't just about money. Landon's bad behavior got worse, Grakel said. How he told crude sexual jokes during practice one time before filming a bedroom scenes, he began making sexy comments about women. She froze, just frozen. Melissa Gilbert later said that other actresses on the set also hated it. Landon told dirty jokes all the time, and Grassel and Catherine McGregor didn't like them. An affair with makeup artist Cindy Clerico, who was much younger, didn't help, and he bragged about it. Even though Landon was still married, he talked about it in public. But he didn't stop there. Use his power to punish Grassel even more. She talked about a time when her role became smaller and smaller. In one episode, she made coffee and left. Occasionally, the camera would zoom in. She would spend hours getting dressed and makeup on props instead of showing her face. They would only be used for seconds. Co-stars started to avoid her. She started drinking to deal with things. You drink. She also said that some of this darkness came from Michael Landon being mean to you. Landon had a hard time in the past. He was born Eugene Owowitz in 1936 and grew up with a mother who was mentally ill and tried to kill herself several times. When she was 10, he stopped her from drowning. The memory kept coming back to him, so he called it was the worst day of my life, and the pain showed on Little House. By season 3, Landon had written 2 separate plots where characters setting themselves on fire to get away from their sadness. These were supposed to be family shows, but they had shocking acts of violence and trauma, and Landon didn't try to hide his scars. He showed them on TV and used his fists to show them. Fist fights became a signature part of the episodes he wrote that critics and stuntmen both noticed. One said it wasn't meant to hurt anyone, he just needed to get it out in his scripts. Charles Les would often save someone in trouble by punching them. Was like when he was a kid and had to hit his mother to save her, so physical release became a theme. To take away the pain, Landon liked to do these scenes by himself instead of using a stuntman. Even with all of this, Landon worked hard. It wasn't just acting, it was therapy as well. He rewrote scripts over and over, stayed late, and pushed every scene until it was ready. The cast and crew called him a perfectionist. Some thought he was too strict, and others praised the work he did. His daughter once said that the stress of the job was bad for his health, but his hard work paid off because the show dealt with racism, poverty, and since disease and abuse were not often shown on family TV in the 1970s, they were still the most contradiction. Landon himself thought Charles Les was a humble, hard-working father, but the actor who played him showed up in a Ferrari and wore gold. Aaron R. Grimm once said it was because Chains smoked Marlboro and told sexy jokes. Like seeing a magician, one minute he's the crazy guy, the next he's Pickles. Then there was the scandal. His relationship with Cindy Clerico caused a stir in his 17-year. Melissa Gilbert's marriage also fell apart. she saw him as a father figure. Now it seemed like every story Michael Landon told was false. His life wasn't just about fame or behind the scenes on TV, it was full of love mistakes and second chances. With 3 wives and 9 children, he married for the first time in 1956. He took in Dodie Levy-Fraser's 11-year-old son Mark and became her legal secretary. After that, they adopted a boy named Josh, but by 1962 that marriage was over. Landon married Marjorie just a few weeks after getting divorced. Lynn Noy, a woman he met while filming Bonanza. This time, the family, and even bigger, he took in Lynn's daughter Cheryl as his own. The two of them had 4 more children together, Leslie Michael Jr., Shauna, Christopher. The family was big, and for 19 years, everything seemed fine. But in 1982, when everything fell apart, what happened next changed his look forever. On the set of He met Cindy Clarico, an 18-year-old stand-in, on Little House on the Prairie. Was in his 40s, and the two became too close. Their co-stars began to notice how much Karen Grassel, who played his on-screen wife, later talked about the time he spent with her. That Landon would brag about how beet pollen had roused his libido and how powerful it was. Also began suggesting books like My Mother, Myself, which Cindy had given him. Not only the affair shocked everyone, but Landon's betrayal as well.